Welcome back to Operation Retirement Readiness. Today, Amy and I are joined by Alan Nelson. He's a fellow financial planner, but also a passionate advocate for military transition support. He provides a great overview of a lot of the resources that are out there for transitioning and retiring military members as they get ready to go into the civilian lifestyle. He talks about some of the nonprofits that he works with, as well as ones that are available nationwide that people should look into. So we'll be diving into that. Also, some of the key financial things that people need to think about as they're transitioning out of the military. So whether you're, nearing retirement or just considering transitioning out of the military, this is a great episode, and I hope you really enjoy it.
Welcome to Operation Retirement Readiness, where Amy and Mike, two certified financial planners, talk about how military members can prepare for transition and how veterans can prepare for ultimate retirement. This podcast represents the views of the hosts and any guest. It is for informational purposes only and should not be considered tax, financial, or legal advice. All information is regarded to be from reliable sources. The hosts are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. This podcast is not intended to replace professional advice.
So as we mentioned, today we're joined by Alan Nelson. Alan's retired from the U.S. Navy and has been doing a lot of work with folks as they begin to transition from the military, either from retirement or just separation from service. So we've got him in here to talk about some of the organizations he works with and some of the resources that are out there for folks that are, getting ready to retire or transition that they can take advantage of. So, Alan, we really appreciate you being here today. And you mind just giving us a little background and, talking a little bit about your transition and how that went?
Yeah, certainly. And thanks. It's an honor to be asked to be a guest on your podcast. So I really appreciate it. And I guess my basic background, I enlisted in the Navy as a nuke electrician, back in the day, and ended up doing well quickly and got a commissioning program called Nuclear Enlisted Commissioning Program. Now it's all kind of folded under Stay 21N, but I wasn't planning to do a career. I initially wasn't sure. I knew I was studying engineering. I had no money for school. I didn't want to get in a bunch of debt. And I wanted to serve, and hopefully I figured they'd pay me to go to school, or I'd get use the GI Bill and not be swimming in debt in my 30s and 40s. So ended up being, the military is such a great place. Now I have bachelor's and 2 masters and never had a single student loan. It's just amazing what opportunities we can pursue in the military. But I ended up going submarines and ended up doing 25 years and retired as a commander in 2018. And as I was transitioning, transition's tough for everybody. Whether you're separating or retiring, it's difficult because for me the biggest challenge was what do I want to do next? There's so many. I have interests all over the place. And so narrowing that down, it was, kind of the biggest challenge. And I guess my transition, I initially looked at going into financial planning because a big part in my military career, that's when I got smart with money to not only help me, but, my sailors, get them on the right track as quickly as possible. Because if we can get them right when they're, the first command, when they're at their first command, I didn't mean the company, set them up right. We could save years off their working life, and just, and all the other things that go with being financially sound. So that was important to me. I initially tried to bring in outside people that were military friendly, like USA and Navy Federal, but they just didn't speak to my people, and they weren't that helpful, and I guess partly that's not their people. So, they were my sailors. And so that's where I realized I just needed to learn this stuff well enough to start teaching it myself. And so that's what I ended up doing. Looked at going into financial advising on transition, but I had a great informational interview. This guy sat down with me for like an hour and a half. And he said, towards the end, he wanted me to come work for him. But what he said was, hey, look, you really, just want to get a few rich clients and protect their money. Yeah, you don't want to work with the middle class. They ask too many questions, and they're just so much work for the amount of money you get. And it just turned me off, that's not the whole industry, but that was my sense. I'm like, I can't be a part of this. I can still remember where I was driving on the way home when I'm like, I can't do this. And so I pivoted and looked at something else. And that's where I was looking at kind of the best companies in San Diego, which is where, we ended up after 18 PCS moves, landed. It was difficult, but I ended up landing at Viasat, the great, satellite communications company that most airlines, actually have now. And it's their culture was just great. And funny though, I get there and guess what? These high-tech engineers don't know anything about money, and asked how I knew all this stuff. And so I offered a lunch and learn, and that went over so well that then I had to get permission to do it. But they were legal was great. And they said, they changed my disclaimer like 2 words. And that's when I really realized, like, I need to go back, earn my CFP, because this is my passion, is helping transitioning military spouses and veterans, find and excel in their next mission. But then, and really financial life planning, which is what we do. And so that's just been my passion. It seems kind of cliche, but to be able to find what your dream is and pursue it is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's not cliche as much as it is everybody's goal, right? That's what we all want.
Right.
And the lucky people are the ones that get to do it. So you, as you said, you've been working with people who are actively in transition or getting ready to transition. Are you working with specific organizations? Are these clients and you're working with organizations? Can you talk a little bit more about what you're doing with the transition space?
Absolutely. It started initially when I transitioned. One of the workshops I went to was called Operation Connect, and the North San Diego Business Chamber offers this. Now it's almost monthly, and it's a 1-day transition workshop that's great. And one of the cool things about it is it provides a year-long membership to the chamber and all their monthly regional connects or monthly networking events, which was great. And it gave us a chance to kind of learn how to network when I went through it. But my transition, while it was not easy, it was considered successful. I had dueling offers from companies, and the person who ran Operation Connect asked me if I'd come back and tell my story. And that kind of started my career transition tips presentations, that if you will. And so it started there, and then it went to, like, I want to touch on some specific things. Then it went to Onward to Opportunity, which Onward to Opportunity is a great program that's nationwide. It's really part of IVMF, the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, founded in 2011 by Syracuse University, which has been a university that incredibly supports veterans and military families for their history. But they do Onward Opportunity provides certifications such as PMP, Six Sigma, various HR certifications, and a ton of different IT and cyber certifications for military. They have to be within 6 months of transitioning, their EAOS, and military spouses can join for free, and also veterans as well. And they, earn these certifications that are so valuable on the outside that many companies are looking for. Not only that, but IVMF also provides an incredible number of entrepreneurship courses. They're from initial startup all the way through growth. And what I love is they have one called VWise, which is just for women, and it's a month-long thing, and then everybody meets in whatever city it is for 3 days, and it's just I've only heard great experiences from that program.
And Amy, you did that, right?
Yeah, I went through that program and agree. It is it's phenomenal. So for those listening, absolutely check out IVMF. There's a ton of opportunity. But Alan, I know that you're in other spaces as well. Continue, please.
So certainly. So they do, I guess, there's about 5 to 6 cohorts for Onward Opportunity each year. And what not only do they provide all this training for these certifications, but at the start, it's basically a 3-day transition workshop. And they invite guests in to speak. And I used to do a career transition tips brief. I've been doing it almost, since 2018, so 7 years. And now she's asked me to focus more just on financial planning considerations instead of kind of the whole shebang of, how figuring out your next mission, yada, yada. And so that's been fun because now I can just go dig deep into, the money aspects that so many people just are, lacking the education on because, sadly, we just don't teach this stuff in our schools. So that's been something, and that led to, I guess, other opportunities that they've been asked to speak at, and some they now want specifically the financial planning aspects. Some of my favorite organizations that I support are VetCTAP, which is that's kind of an acronym, but it's Veterans Career Transition Assistance Program, and that is a great transition workshop that's 4 weeks long. It has 8 modules, and so you do Monday and Wednesday nights from 6 to 9 p.m. They do, each of these modules covering all the things that you need to know about transition. It's really kind of based on the 7 petals from, What Color Is Your Parachute, if you guys are familiar with that. But good friends with the co-founders are just incredible people. And that's Betsy Sheets and Janice Whitaker. We just actually were part of their golf tournament a week ago, which was 2 weeks ago, which was great. But that's one that they do 5 times a year. Another one, and they've asked me to start doing a standalone workshop for them just on, the financial planning considerations, which, is a great opportunity for me to, pass on my knowledge to other people and hopefully get them on the right track as they're going into the private sector. Another great transition program is 4Block, which is, these are all these, VetCTAP is virtual. So you can sign up for anywhere. 4Block has cohorts across the country, and they do that. It's a 10-week program, and they do that two classes, one in the spring and then one in the fall. And they each, there's 10 different modules they have, and they go to different companies and have a 2-hour class each Wednesday night during their course where they not only learn about the company, they have a specific discussion they're working on. And then it's networking. So like with Viasat, we've been asked to do their session 9, which is navigating the job offer process. And our veteran ERG lead, Bridget Guerrero, she's awesome. She asked me if I would lead that because at Viasat, we also do a career transition workshop, a full day event in early March each year. And I present a career transition tips brief at that. That's fun for me because what turned me on to Viasat was attending the career transition workshop when I was transitioning. And then 4 years later, I'm the one presenting, to the 50 plus people about how to transition. So, it feels like, it's just giving back, which feels really good. But we were asked to do the navigating the job offer process, which I felt was kind of weird for me. I'm like, I don't know if I'm very good at this one because I've only got the job at Viasat and stayed, and then started my own business on the side. But it's having the knowledge that we have as, certified financial planners, that helps so much in what they're looking for and, evaluating for their next company and considerations they might not have thought of to this point. Aside from that, let's see, it's just going in transition space. Wounded Warrior Project has they're nationwide as well. And they frequently do, they've asked me to come and we'll do mock interviews and employer panels and, just really, helping various individuals with them. They usually partner with the Deloitte, which I have to mention a few specific companies as well that do a great service to military. Viasat, like I said, we have a full day workshop, and that's often been touted by the attendees as the best single day workshop they've attended. But Deloitte does a core program where that they fly people out, they pay for them to fly out to Texas. And so, and especially if you're interested in getting into the consulting realm, what a perfect opportunity, because all of these workshops where they're providing this valuable information, they're also at the same time looking for talent. So it's, it works both ways. And that's kind of one of the beauties of that. Trying to think of other ones that I've missed. Oh, Amazon and Microsoft have incredible programs that they're like, and Amazon's even using military as a starting point for, it's almost like with AI, they're using them as a test bed for these cool programs of helping the military. And then there's a couple of couple of programs that are nationwide that also are, especially if you want one-to-one mentoring, that I think are really good. One being American Corporate Partners, where you have like a mentor for like a whole year that really helps. And then the Commit Foundation is another one that unfortunately, I just don't have time to do all of those, but those I know are very good. And when I do have a little more free time, I look forward to being a mentor with those as well.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, it seems like there's so many opportunities. All you have to do is go looking for them. How do people find these opportunities? Are they in the transition assistance classes that are on installations? Do you have to get on LinkedIn? Where's a good spot for people to go find the things that you've been mentioning? Plus, no doubt there's more out there, right?
Right. There is. And that's the tough thing. There's almost too many now. And time's our most limited resource. So what's valuable and what's not? And I think you can find them on LinkedIn. And I frequently post when there's a new, things coming up and recommend people to sign up with them. But a lot of it comes into networking and hearing from, when you go to these networking events, learning what's out there. And sadly, what I see is retirees tend to be the ones that attend these more than people separating. They get the knowledge better. And it's kind of unfortunate, because I think it's more challenging for people separating than retiring. They don't have a pension and healthcare and potentially some, they might have some disability, but there's so much more challenges that they need these workshops better than anybody else. But I think where much of it comes into networking and learning, from other people, what's been successful for them. And then, following people, on LinkedIn that post about these different things and kind of weigh in on what's good and what's not. Like, also just in Greater San Diego, I want to mention a couple of places just because it's the largest military footprint. And so there's a couple other things. The Military Transition Assistance Seminar, that's a 3-day course that the Marine Executives Association, Chris Keene and Mike Frazier run up in Oceanside 3 times a year. And it's great. They do mock interviews, resume review, kind of all those things. And I close it out nothing like the end of a 3-day class on personal finance and investing. But it's I joke that they don't like their students, that they have a real heady topic at the very end. But they and actually that class is coming up in 2 weeks, October 28th through the 30th, and there's still spots available for anybody that's local to the Greater San Diego area. But that's another good one. There's also, I can't help but mention Candorful. Aside from just the transition workshops, Candorful provides 3+ mock interviews for people, and you can't do enough mock interviews. It's getting those reps and sets. And Candorful, I'm a Candorful coach, and I've been doing that for probably almost 4 years now. But they'll do mock interviews, and I also do intakes, so kind of explain to people what's about the program. But there's over 130 coaches that, a lot of them are civilians. There's some veterans like myself. But it's another way you could maybe network right into a company, because you pick who you want to interview with, and you can see the company, their background. And so it gets like, 99.999 net promoter score, but I can't tell you how many people have went that and then reported back how that's the reason they got hired was, the interview practice they got through Canderful. And then aside from that, we said networking, all of these, that's where I think learning about much of these resources comes from, and listening when you go out to these networking events. But there's a couple of my favorites are Veterans Beer Club, it was founded over 9.5 years ago in San Diego by 3 Marine officers, great people. But that's now there's over 25 chapters across the country. And, that one I learned that was something that was significant in helping me get to what's next. And the beautiful thing about that is it's gotten pretty large, but people that are looking to transition, both military and military spouses, veterans, they're come looking, they have different colored badge that they wear. There's employers that come out and they'll say a spiel about what they're looking for. And then there's just a bunch of us that are, supporters that come out to try to help people with transition. And that's so important. And it's helped so many people out. Another one in San Diego is the Marine Executive Association. Both of these places do a monthly, networking event. And the Marine Executive Association, it's a smaller, it's kind of like learning how to network. I feel like Chris Keene kicks it off and talks about about transition in general and what they should be expecting and things to do. Then everybody goes around and introduces themselves and gives them a chance to do the transitioning folk, their own elevator pitch, and people comment on them if it's not very good, and then they'll, just all in helping. And that's more of an intimate setting where I feel like it's helping people learn how to network in a smaller group. And then VBC is a much, tends to be a much larger group. But
wow, I'm where to even start? I mean, So first for listeners, we will grab links and put those in the show notes. And Alan, perhaps you'll share your LinkedIn handle for
Absolutely.
people to follow you as well. That was a great rundown, Alan.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's a lot. And like you said, look around your local area. If you know where you want to go, there's a smaller one in the St. Louis area it's called Vetworking that, helps with transition stuff and specifically finding jobs for military that are transitioning. So again, throw it in your AI or Google and figure out, what's available. There's probably a lot that you're not even aware of. So. So one of the things you mentioned was, people just aren't very good on the financial side of things. So what do you see as kind of, especially during transition, what are those main blind spots that people typically have as they're approaching either retirement or transition?
Thanks. That's a great question. Because there's so much to it, and there's so much when you're trying to transition that you're already trying to deal with outside of finances. Before I answer that, though, I wanted to say one other thing for military spouses. We're finally getting much better programs specifically for military spouses, which I believe is our hardest problem to solve. Veterans, yes, it's a challenge, but we're doing well. Military spouses, it's much more difficult. And Hiring Our Heroes now has, that's a SkillBridge fellowship, but they have those across the country specifically for military spouses. And then a friend of mine, she started through the Bush leadership, SAN2 leadership program, Rochelle Chapman. She's got this new comprehensive 12-week program called It's My Turn just for military spouses. So wanted to touch on those real quick, because I think they've been forgotten too often or left by the side, and it's good to see good programs specifically for spouses now. As far as blind spots, where do we start? There's the challenge is there's so many things to go on in transition. The first thing I think is that the primary considerations where people have blind spots are their budget. What do they need when they leave? You're going to lose all your tax-free money, so your BAH goes away, your BAS goes away. how much money do I need? And the budget is so important to look at, because how much money do you need to make next? Even if you have a pension or not, do you need, just to get by? And have you looked at that tax advantage of the military, especially in places like San Diego, where the BH could be 40 to 50% of people's income? That's so significant. So the budget, just to know how much you need to make. And then also for establishing that emergency fund, that people sadly, and I'll admit, when I was active duty, I didn't have much of an emergency fund because the job was so stable, but as we can see with government shutdowns, you should have an emergency fund anyway. But how do you know how much do you need in an emergency fund? If you want to have, I recommend 6 months, because usually that's how long it takes people if they get unemployed. It takes about 181 days to find the next good job. So that's 6 months right there. But if you don't know your budget, you don't even know how much you need to save ahead of time to have that emergency fund to cover your non-discretionary expenses. So that's one of the biggest things, I think. And having that in cash and cash equivalents, not in the market. That I had to teach that to somebody recently. Like, the Money Guy show talks about it, but bad news is an extrovert. So when unemployment happens, the market, it all happens at the same time. So you don't want to have to be pulling from the market when you need it in an emergency. The other items that I see, probably the biggest one that people need to look out as early as they can is life insurance. That SGLI is going away. And so how are you going to, it's not an investment. It's risk mitigation. It's protection for those that, need your income. So getting those going and getting, I'm a big fan of, for the vast majority of term life insurance until you're financially free. But getting that before your disability rating comes in so that you have much lower premiums. That's a key, aspect of that I think is forgotten. And the people need to look at survivor benefit plan for those that are married and with children. That's not a quick decision to make. There's a lot to it. And so it takes a real consideration of, whether you're going to take that or not. I think for children, it's a no-brainer. It's so cheap. It's like a cup of, a Starbucks a month. But that's one that I think people kind of rush into a decision too often when it really needs careful consideration. And how do you make sure your loved ones are taken care of in case of, an emergent, in case of your loss of life. So those are probably some of the biggest considerations. And then the last one is, how do you evaluate total compensation? I mean, we've been in the military, we get a raise, we've got our base pay, we've got our BAH, we've got our BAS, and maybe some special pays or what have you. But what about, there's so many other things to consider when you're looking at companies, and what do they offer? Do they offer stock options, RSUs? Are they public? Do they have employee stock purchase plan? What's their 401k and their match? More importantly, how much free money are you going to get? Along with, even though we often have the GI Bill, they'll do, they'll compensate you for getting, degrees. There's just so many things to look at. And like, one of my favorite is the mega backdoor Roth. If their 401k plans set up, wisely, which we're finally getting that at Viasat. Took a bunch of poking, but these things can make such a significant difference. And if you don't, most people just don't know. And so, knowing how to evaluate total compensation, and as you're researching these companies, that could be a significant difference between two or three that you like. If they have these benefits that are so much better, hey, that's the one. Let's pursue that even, more aggressively. So, did that answer your question? I mean, there's a lot to it, but those are, I think, the primary things that I don't worry about your TSP. Do I roll it into an IRA or, don't just leave it where it's at. make sure it's properly invested, because you've got plenty of other things to worry about in transition, not to worry about trying to roll a TSP. Just keep the account there, have it invested properly, not just sitting in the G fund. And you'll evaluate that years later, what you want to do with it. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a really important point, is there's a million things, no less than a million things to do when you're transitioning, and, having a very clear list of priorities, and focusing in on, and I agree with everything that you said, it's the budget, which is hard. So people don't want to think about it because it's hard. People don't know how much they spend on a day-to-day basis in real time, never mind trying to figure out what they're going to spend when they move across the country to a new spot, and take on an entirely different lifestyle. And then, also, emergency fund, which, for some people it's table stakes, for other people it's a surprise to hear that they should have one. And then, the total compensation point, that is so key. Because we don't understand that stuff. So unless you've spent a lot of time with it, or you have somebody that you can ask about it, it's just so important. So I think, I think of all the great points that you've had, the key takeaway is keep your eye on the ball and prioritize decisions, because you've got plenty of them to make.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so easy to get paralysis by analysis. And because there's so much to do, it's overwhelming. It absolutely is. And all these things we've talked about, none of it matters if you don't take action. So, and it might not be always the right action, but you got to take action, and then you can you can adjust course, but you got to take action. And that's going to get you, that's why I tell people, do it every day and if you could start 2 years out, start doing 1 to 3 things a day that you think is strategically most important for what's next. That could be just getting your LinkedIn profile updated, or adding 25 new connections, or, hey, updating your resume, tailoring it for a certain job. There's so many different things you can do, that, get in a mock interview, but just do something each day, and you'll slowly eat that elephant. And the opportunities will be, then you'll see them being presented to you. They don't fall in your lap, but they'll start coming, and you'll be, able to take advantage of them, so long as you're taking action consistently.
For sure. Now with all the things that you said are, kind of key things, blind spots, what is the number one mistake you see people, making, in their transition? So you've worked with a ton of people, facing transition. What is the biggest mistake you see?
This might sound silly, but I'd made this mistake too, but not asking for help and not accepting help. There's a lot to do, and veterans help veterans better than anybody else, and better than any alumnus, and people want to help you, so let them help you. Like, for example, I think of like LinkedIn, and I didn't do this because I was an idiot. But if people like, I can connect you with somebody, and I'm like, oh, I'll reach out. No, let them connect you, because it's coming from a known good source. They're more likely to even help you if they come from, that kind of triadic, bistydatic, relationship. And so that's my best piece of advice that I see everybody do. And we're all in the military. We're used to, we're independent. We work hard for, are used to working hard, doing our things, obviously in a team, but it's hard for us to ask for help. I think maybe even more than other communities. And don't make that mistake. People want to help you, so let them help you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, kind of probably one more question before we wrap up, but anything that we've missed so far? Kind of the last question is, have any specific advice other than that, avoiding that mistake, but anything else people should definitely do as they get ready to retire?
We've already talked about kind of the financial stuff. I guess this might go into 2 pieces. One, if you are married, make sure your spouse is involved with this, because it's not your transition, it's your family's transition. So get them involved and make sure you guys are on the same page with where you want to live next, where your, salary ranges, things, all of those things. But it's too easy for people to get stovepiped when there's so much to do. Like you've mentioned, Amy, there's over 1 million things to do, and but you have to include, your family. And then networking it's so important. It's the most important. The whole package matters, but networking is key. And for those introverts out there, just know it's an energy. It's introvert versus extrovert. It's just energy expenditure. Introverts are actually better networkers because they listen instead of just waiting to speak. And so, but go to those networking events, take the advice from people that they're using, and then implement it into your own story. And the final thing, thank you cards. It's a kind of a lost art, but that will make the difference I've seen it so many times of, whether there's 2 good candidates for a role, that might be the icing on the cake that gets them gets them the offer by another person. So personally, I like doing an email, sit within 24 hours, and then I follow up with a hard copy letter, but I do the email as well, just because you don't know if that hard copy letter is going to get to the person, if that makes sense. And personalize it. Don't, if you have a group panel interview or a bunch of different ones, don't say the same thing, because you just, make it authentic and real. So
that's great advice. I mean, and this whole session has been filled with fantastic advice. Hopefully people will listen to this at least a time or two. Where do you want people to connect with you if they want to follow your information and maybe even reach out to you and get some advice?
Absolutely. The LinkedIn is the best place for me. And I'll provide my LinkedIn handle. It's really just, you look up Alan Nelson. And if you probably added Measured Money Maneuvers, which is, that's a mouthful, my business, you'll find it. But that's where I post for a lot of different transition events, and I also do Financial Fitness Fridays. It's been a little hard to do those, kind of lunch and learns lately, just with so many things going on, but I'll post about those as well. And also on my website, I have a lot of these resources that are free, especially money and career transition related, that are free on the resources tab. There's an education piece, I have all the recordings for all the Financial Fitness Fridays and other career transition events that I do. And then the slide decks for free download for anybody that's interested.
That's awesome. Alan, this is amazing. You're an amazing person. I've enjoyed knowing you for, the last year or so. I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to have you on the podcast, and so that you could share information with people. I hope people take you up on or implement your advice in terms of reaching out. It's true. People do want to help you. People love to be asked for advice and asked for help. So thank you, Alan, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you both. It's the feeling is mutual. And what I shared with my wife when I first met all of you, going to the first Meal Money Con, she couldn't believe how helpful, like when I explained how everybody's there in a mindset of abundance, wanting to help each other out. Nobody's afraid of anybody stealing their clients or anything. It's, that's what I've found with you, both of you, and our whole MFA team. It's just, and it's an honor to be even asked to be a guest on your show. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Alan. So yeah, again, great information that you shared, and I know people are going to get a lot of benefit out of what you gave us. So we really appreciate you being on today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. Cool. Okay.
Thanks, Alan.
Take care. Yep. You too. Bye-bye.
To get transcripts, show notes, or more information, go to operationretirementreadiness.com. Have a question or topic for the podcast? Send it to info@operationretirementreadiness.com. Find out more about Amy and Mike at their websites. Mike is the founder of Next Mission Financial Planning, LLC. He retired from the U.S. Air Force and has worked in the financial services sector since 2021. He is a certified financial planner, chartered financial consultant, and a certified college financial consultant. You can find out more about Mike at nextmissionfinancialplanning.com. Amy is the founder of Instar Financial Planning, LLC. She is retired from the U.S. Army and has worked in the financial services sector since 2019. She's a certified financial planner, a chartered federal employee benefits counselor, and a chartered retirement planning counselor. You can find out more about Amy at instarfp.com.